So I'm gonna just ask you to start off by introducing yourself a little bit. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what you're studying here at Waterloo and where you went on exchange.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Brendan Elworthy. I'm in my 4B term at the University of Waterloo. I'm majoring in English, Literature and Rhetoric with a minor in Applied Language Studies. And for my exchange trip, I went to EHWA Women's University in Seoul, South Korea.
So you mentioned that you were in English Literature and Rhetoric. Why did you decide to go to EHWA, which is in Korea? Because I'm not sure if they offer any English courses there.
Yeah, so basically in my first year at the University of Waterloo, I had to take some, requirement breadth courses. And for that, I decided kind of randomly to choose Korean. And then after taking Korean for 2 years, I really liked the language, I really liked the professor. And so the professor kind of, recommended me to go on an exchange trip. And then so I looked at the different universities and chose Korea.
So EHWA is a women's university, and I didn't realize that it wasn't like only for women's. Can you just explain a bit about how the student population is like there?
Yeah, sure. So I guess it is a women's university, but that's more of like a namesake kind of keepsake thing. I guess especially in the foreign student population, it's probably half male and half female. And then there are some Korean men who go there as well. But basically I guess it started off as a women's university and it still is primarily now, but there's lots of foreign guys and some Korean guys that still go there as well. So,
what were the courses that you took abroad at EHWA, and did all of them count towards your major or minor?
Let's see, the courses I took abroad, I guess in my second year, I kind of planned it out so that I could take some of my prerequisite breadth requirement courses at EHWA. And so I took a lot of just elective English courses there, some literature courses. There's a lot of visiting professors and a lot of other professors from EHWA there, so in the English language department. So I was able to take a lot of English courses, but one of my main reasons for going there was obviously to study Korean, and so I took a lot of Korean language courses.
What are the teaching styles and learning styles like in Korea, as compared to, Canada or Waterloo in particular? I found there's probably two major differences, and those kind of correlate to the different classes. Like with the language courses, in Korea, everything was a lot more, intense. It was 3 hours every day, and a really small class, which is different from the classes that we have here at Waterloo, where it's only 3 hours a week and pretty big classes for the language courses. But I found that for the language courses, that style was really good for me, because then it's an immersion in the language. And the other thing is, in the language classes, they don't speak any English at all. So it was all Korean, which was at first really difficult, but then, like I said, it's really good because it immerses you in the language, and then you actually get to start, thinking and talking in the language. And then for the English taught courses, like I said, there was a lot of really good professors, and but I did find that their teaching styles were a little bit different, especially in terms of grading. It was more test-based and test-focused, whereas here at Waterloo, in my English courses, a lot of them are, a lot of the assessment is essay-based or project-based, where over at EHWA it was a lot of, more knowledge-based tests. So, but it was still a very good experience nonetheless. For your exchange then, so you mentioned you took some Korean language courses here. Did you find that it was difficult to, or would you say it's difficult to get by in Korea without knowing a bit of Korean, or were you able to practice your Korean speaking, reading, writing while you were there?
Yeah, I was definitely able to practice my reading, writing, and speaking when I was there. And I had some friendships, that I would maintain only in Korean, which was a very interesting thing. But I think it is okay to, you could get by without knowing any Korean in Korea. It's very, especially Seoul, like the city where I stayed, it's very, I guess, foreigner friendly. There's lots of, people who know how to speak English and things like that, so yeah.
Okay. How is the cost of living in Korea?
The cost of living can be very, very cheap. And I don't mean like cheap as in like in a bad way, but as in a good way, where you can get by if you're wanting to, probably off of like maybe 500 a month, and that's like including rent and everything. But there's a couple different like, I don't know, ways of living. There was like a, what should we call it, like a winter break that was 2 months. And during those 2 months, I lived in this, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's called a goshiwon, but it's kind of like, do you know what a goshiwon is? Yeah. It's basically like these really, really tiny one-room apartments where you just have like a bed that's maybe 5 feet long, a desk, and a fridge, and a closet. And it's probably like maybe, seriously, like 7 foot by 7 foot, but it's like extremely cheap. And then also groceries there. If you know like the good places to go, you can probably, I think for a period I was surviving off of like maybe $60 a week for groceries. Mm-hmm. And then also restaurants, very, very cheap at the restaurants. You can buy like a good plate of food for like $5. So, mm-hmm. But then again, if you go to different places, it can also get a lot more expensive, depending.
I know Korea can have like, to foreigners, it seems really strange, their cuisine sometimes. Mm-hmm. Did you try anything that was kind of like weird or exotic to you?
Let's see. I'm not sure about the exotic thing, but you're right, the cuisine can seem kind of strange. One thing that took a lot of getting used to was kimchi. Okay. Kimchi is like, I guess, fermented cabbage, and they literally eat it with everything. So, and it's really spicy, and I'm not exactly, I guess, good with spicy foods. So that definitely took a lot of getting used to. I would, often drink like 6 or 7 cups of water during a mealtime. So, but yeah, Korean food is really good. So.
What's one thing that you really liked about Korean culture?
Let's see, one thing about Korean culture. I found that, like culturally wise, people are very, like very friendly. Oftentimes when you meet someone, they'll be like, "Oh, have you eaten yet? Let's go get some food. I can, kind of help you out with that." So it was very, like, I'm trying to find the right word, but almost like homey, Okay. Very, very friendly. Yeah. There were some things that were a little, kind of culturally shocking. One example was in the Taekwondo club, there was, like, I guess, a leader, right? And so she was this probably, like, same age as us, like, early 20s kind of girl. But, whenever we had, like, meetings or anything, and she would walk into the room, and the whole room would get up and bow to her. Mm. So it was very interesting to see, that kind of respect that the Korean society has. So yeah.
So you kind of led into it, but mm-hmm. Is there anything that you found particularly challenging or difficult to get used to? I mean, it could be anything about like the culture,
yeah, or
like with the school.
Yeah, like the thing I was talking about before, that wasn't exactly challenging. More is just like it was, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, kind of thing. Let's see, challenging aspects was. Yeah, being in a new culture was definitely a little bit of a culture shock, when you first get there. But that always goes away with time, and you kind of get to know things. So that was fine. The school being a women's university, there was kind of like this almost like a stigma attached to it whenever you told anyone that you go to a women's university. But that was, most of the time they were just like, laugh at you kind of thing. I can't think of anything else that was particularly difficult. The food, getting used to spicy food was a little bit difficult, but there was always really good options I could find that weren't spicy.
Yeah. Did you do any traveling while you were in Korea?
Yeah. Let's see. like I talked about that internship that I had. For that, we went to, and the summer program the year before, we went to Andong, which is like, I don't know, a traditional Korean village. I also went to, I guess, one of the cities that was in the really like south part of Korea, Busan. And then I also went to Jeju Island, which is like, I guess, almost like a tropical kind of island in Korea. And then at the end of my travels, I went to Japan and toured around Japan for a little bit, which was really, really awesome, really interesting. I would have liked to travel more, but oh well.
How would you say this exchange has impacted you as a student and as a person?
Let's see. So I feel like I don't know, grown up in a way from going on this exchange trip. Like I got to, experience a lot of different things that I could never have done when I was still here at Waterloo or still here in Canada. I feel like it's opened me up to a bunch of new different possibilities. I was also able to, I guess, get a lot of work experience over there. I had a part-time job teaching English for, I guess that was about 8 months, which was a really awesome experience. And then I actually came back here, and then I was able to get like a TA job with the Korean language department here, helping out Professor Kim here at our Korean language department at Renison. So yeah, it's been a really good experience on a really positive experience for me on a whole different number of fronts.
For both students who are considering exchange in general and for students who are considering going to Korea, is there anything that you want to say to them, like any last words of advice or anything?
Yeah, I would say like don't hesitate. If you're considering going on an exchange, I would definitely do it. Also, one thing I would recommend as well is in terms of housing, going into the dormitories. Like if you're going to go overseas, I would really recommend staying in the dormitories that school provides, because I found that it just kind of automatically puts you into this community of people that you can kind of share your experiences with and, talk over things if you're having a hard time adjusting or something like that. But yeah, I guess in summary, don't hesitate and go for it.